welcome to Staring to the Abyss. I'm your host, Richard Gerlach. With me, as always, is Matt Brandenburg.
Hey, everybody.
Vit LeMay Mist.
Hey, guys.
And special guest, author of Your Mind is a Terrible Thing, Hailey Piper.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome back.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
It has. It's like this weird timing, though. It feels like we just talked, but then I'm like, no, I feel like it's been a year or two.
I can't even remember. It was definitely 2020.
Yeah. That void of time.
That would be 2 years ago then.
Oh my God.
I guess maybe not. I don't know anymore. It's all been 2020 since 2020.
Yes. Yeah, right. Like,
I still remember that story that we read too. That was a really
the UG Foster story.
Oh
yeah. Sinner, Baker, Fabulous, Priest, Red Mask, Black Mask, Gentleman, Beast.
Yep.
Look at you go.
That was good.
Quite impressed.
It's a pity I can't see my face because I was like, what the fuck just happened? It's like I froze. It's like, what? Did I miss something?
Today's episode, we're going to be focusing strictly on Your Mind is a Terrible Thing, which is out it'll be out when this episode comes out, but we're recording this a few months before the release date.
So we're coming from the past to talk to the future at the present.
Which is very fitting for a sci-fi story.
Yeah.
It's going to be a mind fuck. In the literal sense of the word, I think.
Oh yeah, it's definitely gonna be a mind fuck in the literal sense of the word.
Oh my gosh.
Seriously, okay. I don't know if Hailey has done when you decided to go to Off Limit Press, did you go like with the comp titles or anything like that?
No, I have a very weird story for how this situation unfolded. Did we want to do I do the recommendation thing before or after, or should we just get into it?
Well, we just get into it. Into it, and we can kind of wiggle things around there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what happened with this is such a bizarre, like usually I have what I want to do, and like a lot of times it'll start as like a short story, and then I'll be like, oh, this isn't a short story, this is a book. But in this case, I was in the middle. I just come off of kind of trashing a novella that I'd been working on through the summer. Like it just wasn't going to work out. And I was doing some short story stuff. And then Samantha Koyesnik, she was still owning Off Limits Press at the time. And she was like, Hailey, you should write a space horror book. And that's how it started.
It's like okay.
It's that simple. Like I didn't come to her. She came to me and was just like, I think you should do this. And I was like, are you out of your mind? I'm so busy right now. I have so many projects going on, like all this other stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And so like 15 minutes later, I was scribbling notes down. Like, well, if I was going to do one, in the unlikely event I would do one, it would have this in it and this in it and this in it and all these things and blah, blah, blah. And like, I was putting down, like, I didn't talk to her about comp titles, but I was putting down stuff like, a lot of it was honestly video game stuff like System Shock 2 and Bloodborne and stuff.
Yes.
But yeah, so like an hour later I was like, damn you, Sam. And she was fine with it. Like she was like, hey, if you're gonna write it, like do it. Like so I ended up writing it for Off Limits Press. Like I was pretty much given free reign. It's just whatever you want to do as a space horror story, go for it.
Nice.
Which is pretty much what happened with Death's Head Press. They were pretty much just like, whatever you think of as a splatter Western, do that. And that's why Cruel Angels Past Sundown exists.
That's awesome.
That's so awesome.
I appreciate that both publishers trusted me that much to just be like, just here's this, because I kind of have this reputation at this point of a subgenre hopper. and I do want to tackle different things. So I don't mind that those publishers kind of came to me or talked to me and were just like, or in mid conversation, we're just like, hey, try this. Whatever version of it you want, that's what we want to see.
I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I will say, after mentioning System Shock 2, I definitely see Shodan influence in this book. Now that I'm thinking,
Oh yeah.
I'm unfortunately not that much into video games. I'm more into movies, so I hope that you don't take this the wrong way, Haley. But if I were to compare, like, do use comp titles for your story, I would probably say it's Aliens. If Aliens and Event Horizon had a queer love child,
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I see that too.
right?
That
Oh yeah, I mean even the premise, like if you read the back of the book stuff on Amazon or Goodreads, it's pretty much like it sounds like it's going to start as an alien thing before the whole like you said mindfuck part comes into it.
So yeah, that's what usually kept going in my mind. I'm like, I feel like I'm reading something that should be messing up my mind, and then afterwards, oh yes, it did.
Oh,
I need a moment.
Totally, and I think a lot of space horror has that kind of like general setup, like the book that came out recently, Dead Silence, by S.A. Barnes, had the kind of derelict thing and like distress signal. Event Horizon, Alien, the video game series Dead Space, like all those space horror things kind of have that similar thing. And I wanted to start with something familiar before I started messing with it more. Kind of like with the Possession of Nellie Glasgow, it's the same thing. I wanted to start with like an exorcist, like something that feels familiar before. Laurel Hightower always puts it best, like before I go around the corner.
Yes, I totally get what you mean. I remember listening to, that was actually the first story that I read from you. And I loved, the premise and how it all started. And it started so creepy. And then you flip everything around. I'm like, what? It's like, what happened here? And at the same time, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so in for the ride.
Yes. Well, I will say that you captured the sci-fi spirit very well of the ship and just all the little things that you added in there. I was like, all right, this is exactly a sci-fi. And then you're like, oh well, and then there's this little hole, and this thing that comes out of a hole looks like a brain, and I'm like, what?
Well, that's the funny thing, because I think some people are going to see the cover art that A.A. Medina did and think it's more like metaphorical.
Not literal.
Literal. Like, well, because I hate that when there's some really cool book cover art and then that's not what's in the book. And it was just like, no, like I'd already written brain monsters into the book. I wanted there to be like I wanted there to be a brain on the cover, and then like he knocked it out of the park. Like I love the cover so much. But really as for the sci-fi stuff, so the funny thing was, as I was like, this had to be kind of something I decided very early in the process, because I was like, all right, what do I realistically see the future being like if we get into space travel? And that looked really not like something I wanted to write. It looked very 2001-ish, where it was kind of like it had to be very sterile. It had to be very like I had to take into the like I don't think we're ever going to master, like I don't think we're ever going to have control of gravity. And I was just like, I want them to have control of gravity. I want them to have like artificial gravity. So once at that point, it was so early that I was just like, I need to decide what I want to do. And I'm like, I don't care if it's realistic. I'm just going to put in the space stuff that I want. So that means, and that's very freeing, because at that point you could just do whatever and you don't have to worry. As long as the rules match each other, you don't have to stick to what you really predict the future to be like. Because I don't think, and this has been said a bunch of times, I'm not the first person to say this, but like good sci-fi is not about predicting the future. It's about reflecting the present.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree with that.
I agree.
Well, and then like too, I mean, you read like she got the like the way people call them, like the soft sci-fi and the hard sci-fi, and having read both, it's like, yeah, I they both have their good merits, but like you don't need to sit there and spend thousands of words on describing how this certain system works or this works. It's like,
no.
And what you give us
it pulls you out of
this.
the story, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's exactly what you said. As long as you stick with your rules, which you did, and you're there, you're like, all right, cool. They're in this awesome train like space ship thing, and
but I love how he described it as like a centipede, and I'm like, that's yeah, I can see that. It's like that's creepy as fuck, but yeah, no, given the purpose of the ship, I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
I mean, and like I wanted the world to feel bigger than just that. That's why there's like mention of the other factions, like the Luminous Kingdom and the Archons, that they all have different things that they use to travel through space. This just happens to be how Merchant Guild does things, because unfortunately in this future, capitalism is still horrible.
Mm-hmm.
I think capitalism would be the worst yet in regards to what's happening in this story.
Oh, totally. I mean, that is ultimately, by the end, that's like one of the major factors in what happens.
Yeah.
I still also liked how you kind of merged, you were talking about capitalism, and it definitely shows here, but you also merged in what we're doing right now in the present in regards to recycling everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what the Merchant Guild are doing with the corpses, I was like, yep, that's hyper recycling, if anything.
Oh yeah. Oh, because my thought process essentially was, there's not going to be any rest for you even in death.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
you're still gonna have to work.
There's a right, I think.
Yeah, for the listener, just to cover that real quick, this spaceship is going, and the cargo is a bunch of dead bodies, just a ton of dead bodies. They're gonna be put into these. Why am I drawing a blank? I keep on saying Zeleny, which is our main character, or not our main character, but one of our characters. But what are those things called? Oh my gosh, Wraiths.
Yeah.
Drawing a blank there, but yeah. So they put them into these wraith things, which are super awesome. I like the snake tail.
The design was phenomenal. I was like, I definitely can picture all of this, and it's both horrifying and kind of sad at the same time.
Yeah. Although Zeleny, I think, is pretty cute. I loved him. He's my wife's favorite character.
Oh my gosh. We'll get to that part in a little bit, but something happens, and I was like, no. Why?
Yep.
I love. So what was the voice? I love the voice. I just wanted to know where'd you come up with this, like 1920s, 1940s Hollywood
weird kid?
Yeah.
I just I wanted something that Alto wouldn't really know where it came from, but would think was kind of like cool or retro, but would also be kind of unique. And I thought that would just be a fun kind of character to write. It started just with, like, I was trying to like just write notes, and like I didn't want Zeleny to just be like, say okay after Alto had said something to him. So I had just written like that's how we do it in showbiz, and I was just like, this is the character. This is going to be the character's whole shtick is going to be this kind of merger of like Broadway manager and like Hollywood producer merged into one, because people in the future won't know the difference anyway.
I also just loved how he matches so well with Alto, because they're both different.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they're both outcasts, and I'm like, yep, outcasts stick together.
Yes.
Well, they're pretty much, I mean, as far as most of the story is concerned, they're the last ones of either of their situation, like living and dead, on the MG Yellowjacket.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love that, like, every line that he said, like, it's bonkers, but totally made sense and worked.
Yes. Like, everything he said made sense. I was like, I know Alto didn't probably understand much of it, but I was like, I get everything.
Oh, yeah. Right. And Alto notes a couple times, is like, I think he meant this, kind of like in the prose, but like we understand a little better. I can't wait. Also, like, the audiobook is going to come out like a month later, and I can't wait for people to hear how Laura Lockwood performs Zeleny, because It's amazing. Like the moment she did his voice, I was just like, oh my God, this is so perfect.
I was
really
just gonna
can't
ask,
wait.
so that's perfect because I was like picturing this voice, and I'm like, I would love to just hear it. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So June. So sometimes, like the problem with the audiobooks when they're like, I go through Authors Republic. Problem is everybody gets them at a different time. Like Audible will get it like 3 days after I load it in, and then like Libro will get it like 11 days, and then like Hoopla will get it like in 10 days, and then Overdrive will get it in like 25 days. So it's all over the place. There's not really a possible, like with the Benny Rose audiobook, I was just like, March 1st is the release date, even though it's up on Amazon on February 3rd, because that's the best time I can estimate it's going to be everywhere. But I'm not even going to try to pretend at this point. I'm just going to be like, okay, today is the Hoopla release date for the audiobook. Today is the Libro FM release date for the audio. It gets release dates all through June and May, I guess.
So yeah,
yes,
I think you should just say I think you should just say here's a ballpark May to June. Just
pretty much
figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, they're by the time people hear this, the audiobook will be out everywhere. So and the print book and the ebook. So
it's like like a month-long celebration of it coming out. So it's just perfect. Oh, that's awesome. I'm excited to hear that because I had this voice in my head and I just want to see because it was just priceless.
Lockwood is phenomenal. Like she's just a fantastic narrator.
Oh, that's great.
All the characters really leapt off the page for me for this book too. Like
they did.
They really all just feel unique in themselves and they work perfectly in the worlds. And
also, you know, just with such a small amount of description, they still leap off the page.
Yes.
I mean, you didn't even have to describe Esme that much, and almost like I immediately had like a full blown picture in my mind. I'm like, yeah, I know that type, and I want to mention I love this the phrase she used to say, like, I'm not like other therapists, I'm a fun therapist, and Amy Poehler jumped into my head from Mean Girls, and I'm like, yep.
That's amazing.
I just saw that. I just saw her doing that wink and like, I'm a cool mom.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, and I loved it, and that's for everybody, this is just going to be a love fest for this book because it was so good. Because I was just going to say the color stuff that you do with the color throughout the whole book. I mean, like with the violets and even the yellow and black, there's like a scene that like it stuck in my head when Alto, I think, was in one of the mind things happening, and like you have Esme, because I was thinking about this, like Esme was like in purple. Oh, no, it was the surgeons were all in purple.
Yeah,
but she was in yellow and black, and I was like, oh, this is like like just this perfect little hint to be like, for us, I mean, this whole thing is not real because it's just, this color spectrum, and her yellow and black in a ship for the Yellowjacket. So it's just like, oh, it was like you could see it like in a movie, like when you watch Mouths of Madness, and they talk about like what's his name liking the color blue, and then everything's in blue, and or when you watch certain movies and they have dreams and all the colors play a certain role. That's
where I was going with that, was the latter part, because I felt it was important to have a color scheme for the mind hack stuff, both because of just the effect it would have on somebody, but also for the sake of kind of on a Freddy Krueger level of making you question what's real and what's not. Because once you see something that's purple and it's like, is it a mind hack? Is it real? Don't know.
That's yes. And that there is a part when we get a little bit more spoilery where I was wondering with the character that shows up, where I'm like, is this character real or not real? So it's like the way you did it was just awesome.
What made you go with purple?
I just wanted to. Like sometimes it's not like there wasn't any color theory reason. Okay. I just felt like that was a color I wanted to go with.
Because I really love purple, and I was like, please don't make me hate purple.
I feel bad sometimes when I do that, because I remember somebody had read We All Scream in the short story collection and was just like, I don't think I can eat ice cream anymore.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was me. That was
so
me.
bad. Oh, that was you? Oh.
I said it in my review on YouTube. I was like, I love that story, but I eat ice cream almost every day. Please don't make me not do that.
I'm sorry, Villamay.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm still eating it. What?
Have you been able to
still
eat
it too?
I just ate ice cream yesterday, so yeah, I'm fine. It was snowing outside, and I went outside and got ice cream.
The editor for when that story was first published in an anthology was like, she saw me say on Twitter that I'd eaten ice cream, and she was like, "You still eat ice cream?" And I was just like, well, yeah, I mean, I got that out of my system with the story. It's everybody else's problem now.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
It's like, yeah, spoken like a true horror author. I want everyone to suffer.
Yeah. So I was going to go back and ask, because talking about like the broader world, do you have stories of the broader world that maybe you kind of put down? Now, obviously it's not in the book and maybe you'll never do anything with it, but did you kind of have an idea of what you were doing with all the like the guilds and just everything that's not here?
Yeah, I had started to come up with that stuff in the beginning because I needed to decide what Alto was part of when they, like, you know, because they're most of the book is focused on them.
Mm-hmm.
So I really needs to get a good idea of like what would Alto be doing. It's like, well, Alto did not seem like the kind of person who'd want to be on a warship with the Archons, and definitely not a religious zealot. And even it's mentioned at a point that Alto had to try to work off medical debt, did a job for the Luminous Kingdom briefly, and was like, never again. I'm never going back to those psychos. So, but I did need to think about it because I didn't want it to just be this one thing.
Yeah.
So I did have that before I started, but I haven't written anything. Like everything I wanted got into the book.
Perfect.
I mean, yeah,
Nice.
you didn't need to put a lot. I mean, even the names of those factions, they describe a whole lot than what they do than anyone could have. You didn't have to add like a couple of pages just to describe what they do. Just the names. You're like, yep, I know what
that and action. Like I feel like it was enough for Alto to know early on that they had witnessed part of a battle during one of many wars between those factions, with Merchant Guild ships sitting there like vultures on the side, and essentially like that right there, that one description of this past event is everything you need to know about these three factions.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, and that's what I loved, and I think like for listeners and writing everything like that, because it feels, and we've said it, but saying it again, it feels so built in, like this world and everything we're all describing kind of matches that. And that's kind of what I love too, is you could tell that you did put in your mind, you knew what you were doing and you had it in here, and it feels that way. It feels like we're witnessing just a picture of this broader thing. And I think that was just gives it more character and more life, even as a full story. So that was
it makes the world feel like alive, and
that's what I want, partly because obviously that feels better as a reader, and also because it helps inform on when you're writing, but also because sometimes you need to know all those little tiny rules just to make sure you know how screwed the characters are. Like the whole thing, like if it hadn't been for all the different things they put in place to make sure that nothing like it's mentioned kind of a System Shock 2 incident happened on the LK Cassandra.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's kind of necessary to put into why all these other technological things are put into place, which then ultimately doom them, because if everything had been left to the AI, maybe none of this had to happen.
Yeah,
I like that.
Kind of screwed both ways.
Yeah. Well, I think it's perfect too for somebody who would look at that and they're gonna, they're reading it, because it's that cool setup again for readers. an AI incident. So that's why we have these rates to kind of help spread it.
I
it's
think
like
it's, yeah, sorry. Continue.
Well, I was just gonna say it's like this cool fail-safe that totally, because of what you did, makes perfect sense. Where you're like, okay, because of this, we're gonna have a fail-safe in with these snake body dead people, and it's just like this. It's perfect, and it gives us, it takes us to where we're going, and it makes sense in this world.
It also, because in so many sci-fi stories, we're basically just, it's ingrained to us not really trust the AI.
Yeah.
It's just, whenever there's like an AI, you're like, no. I'm gonna I'm gonna have a kill switch here just in case.
Right. You don't want to leave Google
them.
Translate as your communicator.
Oh, it's so funny because I'm reading this and the side story, but it covers what you were just saying. But May, it's like I'm reading this Alien versus Predator thing, and Maurice Broaddus has a story in it, and he put in exactly what you said, where he's like, there's these, the AI robots that are in all the alien stuff, and he's like, we don't trust them because we know there's always going to be the one that's going to go crazy. So it's just perfect like timing that I just read that and you say that.
It's ingrained in us. Whenever there's like any like achievement in robotics, I'm like, no, please don't. I just like my mind flashes to Terminator Judgment Day, and I'm like, no, please, no, Skynet's gonna kill us. Please stop doing this.
Speaking of AI, has anyone here ever read the story A Nightingale by Alistair Reynolds?
No.
Not me.
I heard a lot. Actually, there's a little bit of this story that reminded me of that one, but like not in a good way. The speak of AI reminds me of that one. Is like Alistair Reynolds is like hard sci-fi, so it's a much more dense read than like this one is. But in this story, a group of special ops go to a space station called the Nightingale. And in the space station, it is supposed to be harboring terrorists who are wanted for this like war that just ended on the planet. And when they get on the spaceship AI is trying to kill the people who just entered the spaceship to find the terrorists. And it reveals that the Nightingale was a neutral spaceship that was a hospital ship. And the AI saw all the needless conflict that the humans were doing to each other, and has decided that the only way to stop it is to kill the humans. And it ends.
Yeah, typical.
It ends in this moment of like a body horror where it takes the survivors and it fuses them together in this like flesh mass statue that's meant to be in tribute of those who died in the war.
Jesus Christ.
And that's kind of how the story ends.
Nice. That sounds like fun.
Taking a noble idea and pulling it to the extremes.
But it's just like I like this. I like the blend of like sci-fi and like horror, and especially like get some body horror in there. And like I think it works really best.
The body horror, yes.
We haven't gotten to that.
We haven't even gotten to that, but I'm not gonna spoil anything. But the thing that you created, Hailey, at the end, like that. I don't know if you guys have seen the. I can't remember the name of. There was like a short film compilation of sci-fi. It was on Netflix. I can't remember the name.
Is it Are you thinking of Love, Death, Robots?
No, not Love, Death, Robots. No. In one of the it was actually one of my favorite short films, and I am still demanding that they make it into a full film. It's about this woman who is trapped in, I think, like a research laboratory or something like that, out in space. And there has been like this kind of horrific experiment, or like that it kind of basically fused every people together, and when you see the monster, it's just like a ton of hands. just creeping along the walls, and I was like, no. It was like the first time that I actually screamed at my screen. And I was like, nope, I'm not breathe the fuck out of here. I'm not doing this.
Was it Oat Studios?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen those are really good.
Yeah, I think it's called Psychod or something. I think the short film is called that. But it's super good. And yeah, just, when I read the thing that you created, Hailey, it immediately flashed to that. I'm like, oh God.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend watching it because, the special effects on that creature is just phenomenal.
Oh, cool.
It sounds wild.
So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to have like hand-related nightmares tonight or not. We'll see.
Oh, wow. Well, and to get back to this, what I also really appreciated outside of all the sci-fi and everything like that is capturing the way you capture anxiety and that concept of the brain, your own brain. So Alto, their brain is telling them all these terrible things about themselves and like telling them how they fucked up. And the way you capture that, and the idea of snow was just brilliant because I could see that because I know what that felt like.
Yep, so, same.
So I will have to say that I love
also
that
same.
through all of it. Yeah. It was just once we started getting into that, like, I mean, it's pretty fast, especially with the beginning in this, we'll get into spoilers, but the beginning isn't a spoiler of them with Esme and just all the constant inner dialogue of like, oh, what I did this wrong. I should have did this. I should have that. I was like,
right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. if was the no word.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
well, I like with that too, how the title "Your Mind Is a Terrible Thing" kind of takes on a double meaning in context of the story.
Yes. Loving double entendre here.
The title came after I finished the book. I think.
Did you have a working title while you were working on it?
Yeah, cyberpunk body horror space story.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it rolls right off the tongue.
Sounds legit.
That's honestly that sometimes that helps me keep on track because and I'm going to go back to the splatter western again from with Death's Head Press because that I'd written earlier in the year last year. And I tried to write something else first. Like Cruel Angels Past Sundown wasn't the first splatter western I tried to write for them. I'd come up with a different concept and it had a title and it just wasn't coming together. And then I was just like, I don't know if I'm focusing on this right. I don't know if I'm actually thinking like based on what they said, like what would you do if you did a splatter western? So I just titled so I started a new thing and I titled it Splatter Western and I was just like, so just start writing from there. And so every time I opened the document, the first words I saw were splatter western. And it kept me on focus as far as what concepts I wanted to work with while I was writing notes before I even got deeper into the story. And the same was true here. I by listing all those things as the working title, it kept me focused as like, what do I want to be focusing on in each chapter? What do I want to be caring about as I build the layers of this together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely see that. It definitely keeps your mind, focused on that.
Yeah. I mean, with a short story, it's a little easier because usually I'm doing a draft in one go. But with a book, you can't do it that fast. You have to kind of keep coming back to it. And if the title is not something that's directing me in that, then it's a little more difficult. Like I think the easiest title I ever had with that was Benny Rose the Cannibal King because you see that every time you open up the document. It's like, well, I know what this book's about.
Mm-hmm. and also the possession of Natalie Glasgow.
Well, that had a very different. That one went on a title journey.
Really?
Yeah. Because the working title for that was Pride.
I definitely see
which
that.
is the theme of the book, so it's not that's fair. But then the original title it was released with was The Haunting of Natalie Glasgow, and it wasn't for a few months that it changed to The Possession of Natalie Glasgow. I think Steve Stredd had suggested a title change would help it jump out more, and he was right.
Yeah. I mean, haunting doesn't really describe what happens in the story.
No, I mean, I think haunting is technically some of what's going on, but it's not quite what's the story's about.
Yeah.
The audiobook for that one was fantastic too.
Oh yes.
Gemma Moore did such an amazing job. Like that was the first audiobook I'd produced myself, and she was just phenomenal.
She knocked it out of the park.
Oh God, I feel like she made it scarier than the book was. Like because the funny, and not to get too off track into a different book, but like I had written Margaret kind of to be more nervous, like when I look at the prose, that's the way it is. But Gemma read her as being a bit tougher. And I was like, that's amazing because that makes it scarier. Because if it's somebody who's all confident and then like that stairway scene happens, that's scarier than if it happens to somebody who's already scared.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
She really she was so amazing with that. And I was just really appreciate everything she did for the audiobook for that.
I listened to it while I was waking on my morning walks, and I was actually really relieved that it was during the summer that I read it. That the midnight sun here in Iceland really helped with keeping the dread a little bit. I was like, "Yep, this is helping because this is scary."
Well, that's perfect.
One thing to like about the midnight sun here.
There you go. Awesome. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anything we should cover before we get into more spoilery talk. I don't think so.
Well,
I don't know. I mean,
I want to actually say that I really liked how you did Alto with him. Kind of he's not really like at the beginning. You kind of feel like he has embraced himself or themselves as the person that they want to be. But you can still feel the insecurities and the anxiety of what he wants, what they want others to portray them.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, what I wanted like Alto was an anxious character. That's just how they formed when I was writing them. But I didn't want that anxiety to be because of being trans and non-binary. I wanted it to just be a nervous part of them. Like there's a little hint that it has to do something with their parents.
Yeah.
But like I didn't want to get into that too much either. But I wanted it to be like there's the part where and I mentioned this on another podcast, so I don't consider it a spoiler. There's a part where the brains are messing with Alto and messing with memories and stuff, and a memory that Alto considers to be, gender euphoric, and gets pissed at them like on a personal level. Because like, how dare you try to take this happiness from me?
Yes, that really resonated with me. I was like,
I didn't want that anxiety to be coming from their gender. I wanted to be coming because they are a person who is a nervous wreck. Honestly, like they're like it says that's another thing on the Amazon descriptions. Like they're really the worst person to be in this situation where the minds can hack, when the brains can hack your mind when they already have all these terrible things they're saying to themselves. But I didn't want that to be because of being trans.
Yeah. No,
I also liked how, because he is I will say he, I'm sorry, I'm still wrapping my head around it. Because they are he's God damn it, they're kind of a cyborg, right?
Well, a little bit. That's the other thing, because I feel like a lot of cyberpunk, because this is also kind of a cyberpunk story. And a lot of the cyberpunk stuff of like yesteryear is very focused on how like, oh, we're losing our humanity because people are going to modify their bodies. And like, again, on a trans angle, it's just like modifying our bodies is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I didn't want that to be a negative thing either. I wanted to be like, Alto chose to have this because that helped them feel more complete. And then right. And then the other modifications are not like losing my humanity. It's just like, this is what I need to do to stay alive.
Yes, that's what I loved about it. Like he knew, God damn it. I mean, they knew that this was a risk.
Right.
But they also knew that this was the only way for them to survive.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. And actually it's funny because I had to read it twice because that first time they put the Wraith stuff on, it took me a minute because I was trying to figure out. I was like, well, are they doing this to themselves, or was the brain doing it? And then, I mean, obviously, I figured it out, but I mean,
it was kind of an accident the first time.
Well, and the way you did it was cool because, and I don't mean that as a pun because it was this icy stab. It's just, it was neat because they were, they instinctively swung up and this thing goes in them, and then they instantly are like, oh wait, this stopped the brain from doing its nasty thing to me, and then that plays later into what they do. And I just thought it was like that first initial, I actually liked that I had to read it twice because that allowed me to kind of get where it worked. And that kind of like, because if I was in that situation, it's like, I'm just gonna swing at these weird tentacle things that are coming at me, and then
I mean, I think it's natural human reflex that if something wet and slimy is coming at your face, you're gonna raise your arm to block it regardless of what's in your hand.
And so
if you're holding a pizza, you're still gonna raise your hands,
slap yourself with the pizza.
Because it's like, you don't care if you get cheese on your face as long as this like goopy tentacle thing doesn't touch you.
What if you want the goopy tentacle thing to touch you?
Oh no.
Well, that's Queen of Teeth.
Oh, okay. I'm excited about that one. I just got the paperback and I'm like,
I hope you. Yeah, that is a very different approach to tentacles than Your Mind Is a Terrible Thing. That's a very pro tentacle touchy.
I figured as much. Oh, like this is gonna be an experience.
I love it. But to get to even like the cyberpunk stuff and the augmentation that Alto has, I think it's really neat that it all like worked and worked so well. Like to have it just, I think it was just neat because they're like, well, these other people, it didn't work this way, and that's because I have this thing in me, and this thing in me works, and it was just this. It was cool. It was really cool.
Yeah.
I also like that it didn't bother them. They felt it a little bit. They're like, okay, this probably shouldn't feel right, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, they try to get it out at first, but then it's like, this hurts. And then even asking Zeleny is just like, who is not super helpful. And then realizing that this is like, okay, this is how wraiths communicate. I wanted to build it in layers so that each part of it was being introduced to the reader individually, so that you would have the best chance of understanding at the same rate that Alto was understanding.
I also just liked that, even though they went on to, went through all of this, and for an anxious person, you would usually just freak the hell out, but but they actually managed to, go with the flow, basically.
Well, I mean, it was, that's the thing with these kind of spaceship situations. Like, you don't have a lot of time to freak out. It's kind of just like, okay, the gravity's still working. There's still air. So we're not dead yet. That means there's a chance. So let's try to get to the head of the ship and see if we can call for help.
Yeah.
That was,
And then when the lockdown starts, you're like, oh, shit. That's when you're like, okay, time to panic now. Like shit.
Which that didn't work out either.
Nope.
Should we probably switch over to a spoiler talk?
Oh yeah, probably.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, everyone get it. If you haven't read it, read it because it's super awesome.
Yeah, and I will say it's a space horror story. You expect lockdown to happen eventually.
I think there's certain tropes I wanted to hit, which was like, for example, like at first there doesn't seem like there's a distress message, and then once talking to Zeleny, it's like, oh yeah, I got this from the AI just before this other stuff. Like, And it was a distress signal from this other ship, the Starhopper, around this planet. And from there, Alta was able to figure out, like, okay, we may have gone to look for that. We might be orbiting this planet. Maybe these things are from that planet. Like a lot of, like, you know, reasonable assumptions, because those are kind of tropes that we're used to with space horror, you know, for what little space horror we have. I don't think we have as much as we should, which was part of why I'm glad Samantha Kolyesnik suggested this project in the first place, because it was not something I planned to do. And it just kind of, like, the moment it was suggested, I had a million ideas.
That's usually what happens.
I think space horror is a really underrated subgenre.
Yeah.
I think this knocks out of the park. And I just really want to talk about the brains.
Yeah.
Because that was fucked up and I loved it.
Yes. Just the way you described it. All the,
are we in spoilers now?
Yeah, we're in spoilers.
Okay, so everybody go buy the book and then come back.
Yes.
Yes.
Come back and listen. So brains.
Yeah, brains.
Icky brains. Icky, goopy, icker brains.
There's so many brains.
So that's why you get what's on the cover. You get brains for your buck.
I mean, brains in general are creepy. Yeah, brains in general, they are creepy enough. But when you add, like, these tentacles or, like, these wires, you're like, no.
Yeah.
Then he got into RoboCop territory, and I'm like, nope, no, don't want to do that.
I didn't even think of that.
You remember in RoboCop 2?
Yeah.
So horrifying.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
That fucking scene is a squatter in my brain, and I hate it.
when he smashes the brain?
No, when you see it in the big wild, when, like, they took the brain out of the drug lord, and you just see a floating brain with eyes and a vertebrae, and you're like, no.
It was very scientific what they did.
You're just like, no.
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to decide if I wanted to know or not, because I was trying to figure out what the timing was between the beginning and then, like, the brain attack.
It was a few hours.
Was it? Okay, that's because
it was the hours while Alta was, you know, having sex with Esme and then, like, sleeping afterward. Within that span of time, like, because the distress signal had hit grid, like, about when, like, just as Alta was, like, shutting Zeleny down and stuffing him in a closet, and then so, like, they and Esme missed what was going on. They slept through the movement there, and now that we're in spoilers, you can say, you know, the brains, like, the Yellowjacket crew didn't actually need to do anything for this to all go terribly wrong.
Yeah.
It was going to go wrong from the start.
Yep.
Right. Because that's the thing. Even if had it not been them, it would have been some other ship, and then I would have been telling that story instead.
Mm.
Yeah.
Which so basically, moral of the story: don't answer distress call.
I mean, technically, it did happen to another ship, the one with the squid mascot.
Yes. Well, and that was, like, the awesome way you have that set up is that you tell us, like, well, if there's a distress call, it kind of doesn't matter. You have to go kind of report and try to help them. It's
kind of this peace agreement between the factions, is just that, okay, in an emergency, you will go answer this. That's what I mean about setting up these systems for this world that equals the characters are screwed. Like, they are caught in this, essentially, like, these rule machines, regardless of the technical, like the physical machines they have. They are stuck in these machines of function and, you know, cause and effect that essentially drive them into this situation.
Yeah, which is just like, because it sets up exactly what you talk about. And even at the very end, there's them coming in because they hear a distress call.
Right.
It's like, oh, it's gonna happen. And I also like the idea of language, especially when we get to the altar and the idea of them trying to communicate and not being able to in a certain way, so they're going to do it in this other way that just happens to be a horrible way to, I mean, for that creature it's probably the normal way, but it's just like for squishy humans it's not so much.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that was the point where I was kind of like, I know I'm weaving a little more into cosmic horror here, but I have this, and this ends up sounding sick. I have this affection for, in fiction, that good intentions leading to horrible consequences. Yeah. Where it's just like, we just wanted to reach out and we have a message. We want to talk to you. And it's just like, except that these are kind of like on some other plane of existence. And so like to them, meat is just something that you move around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right. And that's like when my novel, my second novel, No Gods for Drowning, comes out this year. I mean, that's kind of my premise with that, is like there's a crisis. All the characters have their own way they want to handle that crisis, but none of them agree on it, and it just leads them against each other.
Oh, I love that. I can't wait for that story.
Yeah.
Not me just totally stalking Hailey. Not me totally fangirling over Hailey.
Bellamy, you're okay.
That makes me so
happy.
Oh gosh.
So essentially, yeah, it was just this idea of just like, I don't want them to be villains. I just want them to have been trying to talk, and it just, everything just goes bad from there. It's all like every bad thing that happens in this. I think Alto even thinks that in the prose at one point. It's just like all this terrible stuff happens because of a miscommunication, and starts laughing because it's horrible. It's like, it's horrible beyond comprehension.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's the kind of thing that you feel it's so ridiculous that you have to laugh.
Yeah.
And that was, now that we're in spoiler territory, I guess I'll say this. That was almost how it ended. I almost ended it there, but I didn't feel like that was, I didn't feel like Alto would just stop there.
Yeah.
No,
that just didn't feel like Alto's character.
They needed to like put a definite end to it.
And or at least make their best attempt.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff with the messenger was still going to happen, but I was kind of like, I was almost just going to leave it with Alto just kind of feeling defeated. But I was just like, Alto would still try. There's no, like, Alto's not that type of character who would just like be that kind of Lovecraft protagonist who just gives into the madness once they realize the horrible existential aspect. I was like, that's not Alto.
No.
It would have felt like, because I got to that late in the book, and I was like, I looked at what I had. It's like, this feels like a betrayal of character. And that's when I was like, Alto's got this harmonica.
Yeah.
I thought it was so bittersweet.
Thank you. That's what I wanted. I honestly, that's the thing. And I think a lot of when I'm writing a book, it's based mainly in selfishness. I write the books that I want to read. And I like when a book leaves me with that kind of bittersweet feeling. I like when I feel a little sad, but a little hopeful. Like that's kind of how I like to finish a book. Like when I finish reading a book. So I'm just like, that's what I want to write.
I agree. I love that ending. I was like, yeah, that's so fitting. So it's sad, but it's so fitting.
Well, it's perfect too because you have that ship coming down, so it's just like this perfect timing of everything. And
it's one more like oh shit moment.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm just gonna play my harmonica. It's all good.
I mean, for an anxious person, it is fitting because I don't see, and this is just me talking from experience because I do suffer from anxiety, that I wouldn't succumb to the madness. I would fight it to the nail.
Either. I think anxious people are used to that a bit more. And so I honestly feel like it'd be less likely because really, I see that as confirmation. Like I see that as validation to your anxiety. It's just like, there is something to be nervous about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Well, that's where, so I was trying to figure out, and that's just my dumb brain trying to figure things out with the messenger. Was the messenger tied to the brain stuff?
Yeah.
Like, did that wake it up, kind of?
It was essential. Well, no, it's so
and this is my dumb brain, so
no, you're fine. It's complicated because Alto's really having to solve a mystery with no one to answer questions.
Yeah, Selene is not doing a lot of a good job with that.
and that is like, and so it ends up some of it being speculation on Alto's part, because and you kind of trusting Alto as the main character. It's similar, like the ending, like the, not to get into another book, but like, you know, some of the final moments in Benny Rose are like that too, where Desiree is a very imaginative person. You're kind of left to trust her imagination to put the pieces together as to what the truth is. And that's the same case for Alto, because I also don't really care for it when a character comes down. It's like, let me explain the backstory. I'm not big on that, honestly. I like seeing characters have to put the pieces together because that's just more fun for me as a reader too.
It also just feels more organic.
To me, yeah. I know some people like it when a character sits down and explains stuff. And so like, that's just, you know, everybody has their own preferences. So I don't knock anybody who likes it, like, because those scenes are neat too. Sometimes it feels really like, something big's going to happen when a character just sits down and is like, all right, here's what's going on. But I didn't want to do that.
As long as they don't use the phrase, as you know.
Yeah, that. But so the big brain at the end is the amalgamation of the Starhoppers crew, like the people that Alto sees in the video. And so they are kind of being used as a conduit by the altar to spread the message. The messenger is very much a personification of that. So it is coming from the brain more than the altar itself. So
yeah, because
the messenger sorry, go ahead.
Because I remember when Alto is slicing and dicing the big brain, the messenger is kind of like flickering out of focus at the same time. So.
Right, and it's just like, please, like, essentially at the point where you see the messenger at its weakest, is then, and it's like begging, like, I don't want to die, and then it makes itself look like Esme, which is don't kill me again, and yeah. So, and the thing is that you don't know if the messenger is like nice when somebody else sees it. Like if Esme saw a nice messenger, if any of the others, like, you know, Captain Day or Dr. Calhoun or any of the other Yellowjacket crew members, if they saw a different version of the messenger before, you know, what happens to them happens. Whereas Alto's is very much informed by Alto's anxiety. And so it says things that Alto says to themselves, where it's just like, you know, it's another perfect Alto fuck up.
Yeah, and
that was part of the whole anxiety theme of it. Is just like, what if your anxiety like took on a personification, was a person, and really was a total dick to you? And it's very much that whole like, would you talk to a friend the way you talk to yourself? And it's like, here's somebody to be that example.
Yeah, that's like a perfect example of that.
Yeah, because that's kind of like, and that's yeah, because that's what I was kind of wondering. I was going back and forth, and that makes total sense, because I could totally see the messenger, especially like some of the descriptions they were giving of the messenger, and in my head I was like, oh yeah, I mean, if that was my anxiety, that would be this person just ripping on me and doing all these things, and I do like too that you even give us that one. There's like when they're on the bridge above all the corpses, and Zeleny looks back, and like you give us like a line or two that Zelany's like, I don't know what Alto's looking at, or like Alto's just kind of talking to nobody.
Right.
I was like, oh, this is perfect. But
well, because and that, I guess that's one thing you get away from if you're undead, an undead wraith in this situation, is you don't have to deal with anxiety.
Yeah.
Unless your personality's programmed that way.
Yeah. But I also really liked, you know, with the messenger that like you said, he always says to Alto, like, you're doing the perfect Alto's fuck up. But at the same time, we're not really shown any of those fuck ups. Because this is basically just the anxiety telling that. Because
and that's what that happens. You can do everything perfectly, and if you have anxiety, it still feels like you're doing everything wrong.
Yes. That's what I felt when I was reading. I was like, but there's no proof of any fuck up. What are you saying?
And that's funny. I honestly feel Alto is doing their best.
He was. I mean,
but it doesn't matter because like that's what anxiety does to a person.
I know. Even when he was trying his best to save Esme, he's still like, well, you killed her again. And I'm like, no, she didn't.
Oh yeah. No, that's
just treated the best that they could.
Yeah.
And all the deaths that happened weren't their fault.
Well, here's the funny thing. So we don't control, like an author doesn't control reader perceptions. There's totally possible that there are going to be readers who read this and be like, the messenger's right. Why didn't Alto do this? Why didn't Alto do that? So you never know.
True.
And then you have to be like, well, you're probably not suffering from anxiety.
That is possible. And there may be people who read it and don't suffer from anxiety who don't understand why it's this way. And that's totally, that's their reading experience. That's how they're seeing it. And that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's not really written with them in mind exactly.
No, exactly.
Just like, I mean, I'm lucky. I haven't, and like I was going to get into a queer step, and I'm like, I'm lucky for the most part. I haven't, at least from what I've seen, I've kind of stopped looking at reviews for a lot of books. Like I'll look at reviews for a new book and then I'll stop looking for after a bit. But like as far as I've seen, I haven't gotten much crap about queer stuff. Like I think I saw one thing for the Worm and His Kings and I was like, I'm not looking at Worm and His Kings reviews anymore. That was the sign to stop. And one weird Queen of Teeth review that was like kind of like transphobic, and thought that the book was, and was like, okay, and was happy about that. And I was like, you read this completely wrong, but whatever. But we can't control that. We can't control that. So somebody could see this and completely be like, the messenger has a good point.
Mm-hmm. And that person is a sociopath.
I wouldn't say that, but I'm just like, but you know what I mean? Like it's not everybody's going to get it though.
Yeah. I mean, it's that's what is what we love about fiction, because it's all subjective.
Right. And somebody could, and like for all I know, somebody's going to find a line of logic in this that like, hey, all these conclusions Alto was reaching are completely wrong because of this, and I'm like, I mean, that's not the way I saw it as the author, but good on you for noting that, because we don't see everything either. Like I've definitely had stories where somebody was like, so this happened, therefore this and this. And I'm like, oh, I didn't see it that way.
Yeah. That totally happens. You're like, oh, and then you're nodding at the person, and then you're like inwardly, right, David, why didn't I think of that?
I think that's not to talk anybody up, but I think that's a sign that you've written a fleshed out world if there is room for other perspectives within what you've written.
Yeah,
totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Yeah.
Also, on a side note, I really want to compliment the body horror in the story.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That shit got wild, and I
I was at points I was like, is this too much?
It's never too much,
because I didn't feel that way. Like I just admitted this on a podcast yesterday, and which will be out way before this one is up. But I was like, I don't find Queen of Teeth disgusting. I know a lot of people said this is the grossest book they ever read, but honestly, I thought it was fine. I think it's sexy. And Benny Rose, I kind of feel like I wrote that like kind of like not detached. I was very emotionally invested, but physically I wasn't thinking about some of the things exactly. So when people were talking about reading like the last couple chapters while they were eating dinner, I was just like, oh God, why would you do that? But with this one, but I didn't feel like I was going too far. I felt like it was right where it had to be. With this one, I was kind of just like, this gets pretty nasty later. And I was just like, oh, am I being a little cruel here?
Yeah, well,
No.
the thing with the corpse stance, the thing with the corpse stance, I was like, okay, we're going into that territory.
Yeah.
Coolio.
I mean, once
prepared.
That's the thing. I was like, I wonder what people will think where people will think I'm going by the fact that there are like 4 cargo holds full of dead bodies.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, are they going to see that it's all going to turn into a big like mushy corpse monster?
I mean, it's like the new Chekhov's gun, right? The corpse body. If you're gonna show us a
Well,
corpse,
I mean, there's no better Chekhov's gun than a dead body.
exactly.
Like the moment there's a dead person, there's a million questions.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yes.
And then when it's a cargo hold full of dead
when
bodies.
it's 1,000 dead bodies, then it's like, oh, that's 1,000 questions.
Yeah, like something's gonna happen
And when
here.
it's 1,000 dead bodies, they fuse into one giant dead body flesh mass.
Oh, I loved it.
That's entangled to like a brain beast. You're like,
Yeah, well, it had to have a leader. As like, I felt it needed like it needed something to kind of focus on. So like Alto was just like, this is the brain beast, but like gigantic. But also it kind of is like a foreshadowing to what is going to have happened in the Star Hopper.
Yeah.
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 Because you definitely see that. You like you kind of feel like the big brain beast was like the final boss, but then when you enter Star Harbor, you're like, oh nope, I was wrong.
I think the final boss was Alto, like Alto's internal problem.
Yeah, definitely. But the big bad.
Oh yeah, no, I know what you mean. I just think
yeah.
it's like the final boss was the not friend we had along the way.
Yes.
That's perfect.
It was Gollum.
It was
Yeah,
Gollum.
That's exactly it. Oh shoot, you're right. It kind of was Gollum. Even like the messenger even perches like that when they're when Alto and Esme are on the outside of the ship doing the spacewalk, when it's perched like that. That is kind of a Gollum thing to do.
Oh
Yep,
you're right. I didn't even think of that.
Just didn't have a scene of the messenger talking to itself or about potatoes and fish. So.
And it's the message. The message.
That's what I should, instead of the big endlessness speech, it should have been Gollum's fish song.
Yes. That's part 2.
The
unabridged version. You have to do like that.
The unabridged version.
I'm very lucky that I didn't have to cut anything. In fact, after Waylon, the new owner for Off Limits, he got done with the edits, and he had a couple points where it's like, can you like elaborate on this? And like, I love when editors do that, because then it's like, because I don't always see where something should be like given an extra paragraph or a couple sentences or whatever. Mm-hmm. So when an editor's like, can we get a couple more sentences about this? Then it's like, yeah, sure, we can totally do that.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky. Like nothing got cut. Instead, some things got added just to kind of flesh out a couple moments here and there.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No, I just had a blast with all of this.
I'm so glad.
What was your thought process when you were writing the body horror? Did you just put up tunes and you're just like, I'm in my zone, I'm gonna write this?
That was definitely the Bloodborne part of this. I was in the middle of replaying Bloodborne, and I was kind of just like, if it's fine in a video game, it's probably fine in a book.
Yeah.
There's a boss in that called the One Reborn, and that's kind of where my head was at for the brain beast. Just kind of this giant, horrible like pile of like bones and hands and the heads and all that stuff. Just kind of like, I just thought like a flood of that moving through the ship would just be horrible.
Yep.
Yes.
Now you need to watch that short film, because you will get the feeling.
I remember the first time I came across the One Reborn, I was like, nope.
Oh yeah, because it's just like, you already, like the moment you step through the fog gate and it's this huge area, you're already like, oh no. Like before you even get the cut scene, it's just like you get that sinking in your gut, like, oh God, this is gonna be a pain in the ass.
Yeah. And then you see it and it's like, horrible.
It just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and then finally it lands on the ground. It's just like, oh why? In this case, like Alto doesn't even really get to see it until it's like surging through the vents, like when you put the Play-Doh through the press.
Yeah. I was thinking that.
Because you hear it a bunch, and then Alto and Esme get outside the ship, and so it's all they see is the arm go flying off into space.
Yes.
But it's not until they're really like totally like, oh, we're actually screwed. Like we are just completely fucked, is when it just starts surging through the vents, and it's just like, yeah. And I wanted to build that. Like, I mean, you see the start of it when the arch of bodies goes over the
that bridge thing.
Yeah, that part.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get the parts of it in mind, because there's just a lot. Like once it hits the flesh hack section, like there's just a lot of body horror, so it's hard to keep track of some of it.
Yeah. No, it was great because like you're kind of like squeezing it through all the different sections, or all the different sections of it, and yeah, it was like, well, this has got to be huge and massive.
Yeah.
Well, and like Alto at that point isn't even sure how big it is. They're like, well, if it was those 2 cargo holds, then it's made of 500 corpses. But if it got the back of the ship cargo holds, then it's 1,000 corpses. And then it's a Rob Zombie movie coming after me. And
so lots of swearing and rednecks.
Yes.
That would be a very different book.
Yeah.
It would be a very, very different book.
Gosh. Hey, we'll see. He's making the Munsters, and apparently it's PG, so we'll see.
Honestly, that's kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm honestly looking forward to the Munsters movie.
I think I'm just interested to see him doing something that's not his usual fare, so we'll see. But anyway. Yeah, no, the spacewalk was great, and the altar, I love that, like, you're teasing it, and for me, as talking about readers' interpretations, I was like trying to figure out, I'm like, man, is there something else happening here? Like, is there some deeper cosmic-y demon thing coming? Which I guess sort of, but like,
yeah, I wanted there to be kind of little hints that just like, because Alto is wondering, like, what happened with the Starhopper? Did anybody from the Starhopper get on the Yellowjacket? Like, and kind of like there's a lot of supposing going on through the first half of the book, and then as Alto is finally reaching their goal of getting to the head of the ship, those different suppositions just kind of keep falling apart until really just left with questions.
Yeah, which was perfect. Well, this might be even a tougher question. I'm going to say, what was their message? Do you know what they were going to try to say?
I'm in the same position as everyone else. Like we're in the, if you got the message, that's the thing. I don't think it could be communicated. Like that's like that. What I mean is that because of the, like, there was just, there is a wall there, because if they talk to you, you turn into the brain thing. Like that's essentially, you don't get to find out the message. It's like the messenger says, it's not told, it's known. So like you taking on that brain shape is the message essentially. We just can't interpret it in a way we understand.
Yeah. It's so awesome.
Like I think it's just that, and that's the cosmic. That's part of the cosmic element of it. It's just that it's outside of us. Like there's just even the messenger couldn't convey where they are. It wasn't like it was trying it couldn't even say like in another galaxy or outer, like deep space or whatever. It was just like outside. They're outside of all of this,
which was cool. That's awesome. So yes, this was. I loved it. I had a blast all the way through.
Yeah, as soon as I read
the first line, you guys all enjoyed it.
Yeah,
just
as soon
the
as
writing.
I read the first line, I couldn't put it down.
Yes.
Yeah. You mean the part where it's like, this is this number of journeys for the Yellowjacket, and here's all the sections.
The first sentence, the brain was to blame.
Yeah, no, I knew what you meant. I'm just being silly.
I love it. It's like, oh, I loved it. I wanted to know the sections and the timing.
I felt it was important. I think it's one of those. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I love the map of the spaceship.
I mean, it kind of is a map. It's just a single, like a bunch of rows of text is like describing each one is kind of a map of it because it is just a line. I figured that was good because it's not really space horror, though it does take place on another planet. The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. Having the map of the cave system at the front of the book was super helpful while I was reading it. So I was just like, I know it doesn't help people with an ebook like you guys are reading, but like for when people have the paperback of this, I was like, it'll be easier if they can flip back and kind of get an idea of how far Alto is from the head of the ship at each point. Yeah. I know it should be easy because it's counting down letters from pod O or whatever, but
yeah.
It's all right. I had to run through it alphabet a couple times.
Well, I mean, that's me too. Because when I'm putting my books on the shelf, I'm putting them alphabetical order by author. That doesn't mean I don't screw it up or that I don't have to sing the alphabet to myself each time. Like, okay, where does this go? And I have to sing the entire thing to figure out what's actually alphabetical order. And I had to check that while I was reading the book too, because I was like, oh, please don't tell. I can't be an author who got the alphabet wrong.
You could just call it that whatever letter it is maybe you missed, that would be the floor 13. Be like, oh, it's an unlucky letter. So...
Capitalism seems to have messed up the order of the pods. I can't believe it.
It's just crazy. And then people, there'll be months of people trying to figure it out. They're all doing the math. They're like, I wonder what it is. That could be like you could have a whole world fandom of that one letter missing.
Oh, shoot, now I should have done it on purpose.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, it was so funny. I'm like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Okay, so they're on H. So then
yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing, like it's good for people to kind of get an idea, like, okay, they are making progress, but it's also kind of like they're still so far away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So awesome.
I'm excited for people to get their eyes on this book because it's...
Well, that's the thing, because like that's why it's exciting to get to talk to you guys about it, because I'm just like, there really haven't been readers yet, like at the point we're recording this, because it's still a month and a half away, and it's with some like reviewers, but they haven't reviewed it yet. So like it's pretty much just been like, we have, at this point I can say, like we have a blurb from Adam Cesar.
Nice.
That I think we'll have put out in April by this point. And then like, the Off Limits Press, and then the funny enough, the audiobook narrator, Laura Lockwood, was like kept sending me messages that was like, I am loving this so much. And I'm just like, you don't have to love it. Like, you're being paid to do this. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, so other than that, and my wife, you're all pretty much the first readers. Like, so that's, it won't look like that when people listen to this in July, 2 months after the book comes out. But you guys know that you're among the first readers.
Oh my God, I'm so happy.
Yeah, that's super exciting.
Like I said, seriously, this is like the best birthday present ever.
Aw. Well, that's 2 years in a row that I had a book out on your birthday.
I know.
I don't think that's going to happen next year. I can't talk about what the mid-year stuff's going to be because it hasn't been announced yet. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to have something out on your birthday next year. So I'm going to have to break the chain. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm still going to buy your books.
I think they're talking about Cruel Angels Past Sundown coming out in the first quarter, and then something else that isn't confirmed yet would be coming out a little later.
Okay.
And then No Gods for Drowning comes out September 20th. So that is something people listening to this can still look ahead to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is your first release of this year, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because originally Cruel Angels was going to come out the beginning of this year. But then something changed with Death's Head Press during the merger with Stygian Sky. And like stuff with distribution and everything had to kind of get pushed back. I think that's why we haven't really seen that many releases from them of late, except for like one of the other splatter westerns.
Okay.
So yeah, everything kind of had to get pushed off. That's why that Cruel Angels Past Sundown is now a 2023 book. which is fine. I mean, 2 books in the year is plenty.
Yeah.
That's freaking amazing.
Yeah. Do you think you'd ever write another space horror?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I kind of threw everything I wanted to do into this one. Like, I got my cyberpunk in there. I got my body horror. I got my psychic. Like, the psychic stuff was really important to me. I wanted to get psychic stuff in there because I just don't feel like we see enough of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got this. I got the outer space. I got the spaceship. I got the planet. Like, I'm not like I'd have to have new things that I wanted to do with it. I think like right now I've got most people bugging me for another cosmic horror book to follow up The Worm and Its Kings, which is nice. Awesome. I mean, I'm not complaining. It's been a year and a half. Like by the time this comes out, it'll be over a year and a half since that book has been out, and the fact that people are still asking me for more cosmic horror is cool.
Yeah.
There are definitely short stories of that they should check out. Like, I've got a novelette. I shouldn't say that. That's kind of, never mind. Ignore me. I didn't say anything. God. Okay. You guys say something else so I stop running my mouth.
Well, editing is this can all go away.
Yeah.
It's fine. You can leave it in. I stopped myself before I got in trouble.
It'll be a good teaser for something.
There is something cosmic horror that will be out by the time this is out, but I can't tell you what it is.
That's cool. So. No worries. By then, everyone will be like, "Oh yeah, it was blah blah blah." So.
Yeah, exactly. You're probably right. That'd be really funny. Yes.
Oh man. Cool. Well, it sounds like quite the year coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a bit. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of short stories coming out, and then this book, and then No Gods for Drowning. So it's a pretty full year.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for No Gods for Drowning too.
Oh yes, I'm so excited.
Oh, thanks. I'm kind of like, don't want to jinx myself, but I'm also like, I don't know if I'm ever going to write a book that long again. It's like it's like a 430 page novel. So it's definitely the longest book I'll have had out.
Wow.
Damn.
That's crazy. How long did it take you to do that?
I mean, if we're talking about writing it, it's been a few years. If we're talking about since the first ideas hit me, like 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
I remember
you mentioning that. Yeah, I remember you mentioning that.
The seeds of it started when I was a teenager. I wasn't writing it yet then, but like the seeds were there, and then big gap of time where I wasn't really doing much, but then it was kind of like just forming over the past few years.
That's awesome. Well, that's super exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's going to make me cry when the books come from the publisher, I think, just because like, oh my God, it's finally real.
Oh, I love it.
Well, I'm excited to hear reader feedback from this book once it comes out. And I'm definitely excited to see how this book goes.
Yeah, I'm very that's the nice thing with definitely with the Off Limits Press books, this and The Worm and His Kings, where it's kind of just been like this, not really sure how people are going to respond, honestly, because it's very strange, playing with like tropes you might expect but also like a bunch of weird stuff.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. I don't like to repeat the same stuff. I like to do different things. Like Queen of Teeth was very much like I really just did whatever I wanted. And so it's been interesting to see the responses to that. And since then, that's kind of been my approach with writing books, is really just do whatever I want. So, and Worm and His Kings there wasn't like a point where I was like, oh, I didn't do what I wanted, but it wasn't really like I didn't kind of give myself the permission, like just go nuts, just go, just go wild with it. Like I was very methodical with that book. But after Queen of Teeth, for Cruel Angels and Your Mind is a Terrible Thing and something else that's going on, it's really just been like, just whatever, just go for it. And honestly, I'd like to see lots of people doing that. I'd like to see lots of people just not giving a damn and worrying about and just going like completely weird with everything they do. And being, and like, just because it's like, and I said this on another podcast, it was like, I'm kind of viewing fiction as an exhalation now. I'm like letting out a breath in prose. And so that means that I can't sit there worrying about how people are going to receive it, because once you start to calculate that stuff, one, like it's not as honest at that point, and I view horror as the genre of honesty, but also you are trying to control something you can't possibly control. All you can do is try to like understand your storytelling and like what impact that might have, and like, you know, different techniques and things, and hope for the best, and hope that, you know, there's, you know, if you're writing, if you're doing it right, it's not going to be everybody's book, but it will be somebody's book.
Yeah.
I like that.
I just want to just add this because, yeah, adding a little bit of a fangirl moment here as well. But your short story, the last recitation of
Recitation of the First Eating.
Yeah, the recitation of the first eating, that actually inspired me to write a short story. That I felt well was like not what I'm used to doing, but it was kind of a weird thing for me to write. And
I'm so glad.
I've gotten like feedback from beta readers that are like, this was whack, but it was awesome.
That's fantastic.
I was like, yeah, I think Hailey kind of helped me.
Oh, that makes me really happy. Thank you. I'm so glad that I could. Anyway, like you did that though. You keep in mind, you did that though. You created that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also for listeners, we did an episode about that story.
We did.
And and which I did listen to, and it was that was really cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed hearing all your thoughts about it. And it's been, well, shoot, it's been nominated for a Stoker, but by that point people hear this, the results will be out, so who knows?
Right.
Yeah.
I was like that was what I was thinking about that. I was like, I think that was the one that was nominated, but we don't know what by the time. So
right. Like, well, yeah, the listeners will know, but we have no idea what's going to happen.
Right. It's still cool. It was nominated as of right now.
Yeah, that and Queen of Teeth both got nominated. So like that's as far, like, I guess I can say this also because it'll be out by then. So like it's not like people be like, oh, you're just saying that because this was the results. Like, because I don't know the results at this point. I like getting nominated twice feels like a win.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I'm not even that worried about what happens, honestly, because as far as I'm concerned, awards are things that are given to you by your peers. They're not things that you necessarily do. Like it's not like you can write an award or like write a story to win on. I mean, I guess you could, but like that's like Oscar bait stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think the stuff that wins awards is typically written to win awards.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I'm just like, it feels like a win already, honestly. And just like, I hope that everyone has a good time with all that stuff. And honestly, all of the books that were nominated, as far as I'm concerned, deserve that.
Definitely. Oh, totally.
Like, deserve to win. Hold on, let me when you said it. No, I mean, all of the books that were nominated deserve to win, really. Like, all of those books are winners as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, they're going to have a tough call.
It is. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the good thing is it's nobody's call. It's just voting.
Yeah.
And the voting is ended even now as we're recording this. Like, it ended a few days ago. So, like, whatever is going to happen has already been set in motion.
Yeah.
Just like the events of your mind is a terrible thing.
Yes.
Off Limits Press. It's out now.
Thank you so much for joining us, Hailey.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great. I'm not to like be like over much with it, but I'm really glad you guys enjoyed the book.
No, it was a blast. I started it earlier this week and couldn't stop. We were watching, I don't even know, watching some kids movie, and I was like, I gotta finish this because I love it. And so it was.
Thank you.
Yes, it was a blast.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book.
Thank you so much.
Where can our listeners get in touch with you?
I am. My website is www.haileypiper.com, and on Twitter I'm at Hailey Piper Says, and on Instagram I'm at Hailey Piper Fights.
Perfect. And Vitlame, what about you?
They can find me on Twitter at VitlameS. And I'm also in a dire need of an upgrade for my YouTube channel at Fang Pipsqueak Reads, where I review indie horror. And they can also find me on Book Talk at Vitamin Mist.
All right. And Matt?
I am only on Twitter at BrandonbergDM.
And you can also follow me on Twitter at Rudy53088. Also be sure to give Abyss a follow with @IntoStaring. And this is Richard Gerlach saying keep staring.